"You cheated on me," Millionaire CEO shouted, then broke down in tears when he saw her with her twin sons. "Hi, my beautiful family. Welcome back to Mr. Peter's Family, your own family story channel. Heavenly God, today I bow my heart before you with deep gratitude and humility. Please cover every woman in this family with your divine strength. Bless her body with health, her mind with peace, and her heart with courage that never breaks. She carries homes on her shoulders, heals wounds with silence, and loves without limits. Honor her sacrifices, reward her patience, and protect her dignity at every step of life. Give her rest when she is tired, hope when she is silent, and joy when no one notices her pain. Let every woman here feel seen, valued, respected, and deeply loved. May her prayers be answered before they even leave her lips, and may her life be filled with comfort, safety, and endless grace. My beautiful family, I write with honesty and love. When you stay till the end, when you like and comment, it tells me my words matter to you. It takes only a second, but it gives strength to your brother Mr. Peter and keeps this family united. If your heart is true, like the video. If your love is real, right, I am with Mr. Peter. Let's start with love. The penthouse overlooked the city like a kingdom, but Matthew Potts felt like he was drowning in its emptiness. His father had died yesterday. The funeral had ended hours ago, but Matthew could still smell the lilies, still feel the weight of the casket he'd helped carry. His father's last words echoed in his head like a curse he couldn't shake. "Your mother saw Lisa with another man. She's carrying his baby. I'm sorry, son. I'm so sorry." Matthew stood at the floor-to-ceiling window, his reflection ghostly against the night sky. Behind him, he heard Lisa enter their bedroom. His wife, the woman he'd loved since college, the woman his dying father had warned him about with his final breath. "Matthew!" Her voice was soft, concerned. She'd been trying to reach him all day, but he'd avoided her at the funeral, couldn't bear to look at her. "Baby, please talk to me. I know you're hurting. Let me help you." He turned slowly. Lisa stood in the doorway wearing the black dress she'd worn to his father's funeral, her natural hair pulled back, her dark skin seeming to glow even in her grief. She was beautiful. She'd always been beautiful, and she'd destroyed him. "Is it true?" His voice came out raw, broken. Lisa's face filled with confusion. "Is what true? Are you pregnant?" Something flickered across her face. Fear, guilt. She took a step toward him. "Matthew, I was going to tell you. I wanted to wait until after the funeral, until you'd had time to... So it's true." The words tasted like poison. "You're pregnant." "Yes, but... is it mine?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Lisa's eyes went wide, her mouth opening in shock. For a long moment she couldn't speak. When she finally found her voice, it trembled. "What did you just ask me?" Matthew pulled his phone from his pocket with shaking hands. His mother had sent him the photos while he was at the cemetery, standing over his father's fresh grave. He'd seen them there, surrounded by mourners, and felt his world split open. He held up the phone. "My mother showed these to my father before he died. He spent his last days worrying about me, about what you were doing behind my back." Lisa stared at the screen. The photo showed her outside a medical building, a man's hand on her lower back, both of them smiling. Another showed them in what looked like a hotel lobby. A third captured them having coffee, leaning close together. "Matthew, that's Dr. Harrison. I don't want to hear his name." Matthew's voice rose, years of control shattering. "My father died worried about me. His last words were a warning about you. Do you understand that? His last words." "Your father was fed lies." Lisa moved toward him, her hands outstretched. "Matthew, please, just listen to me. Dr. Harrison is my obstetrician. I've been seeing him because I wanted to make sure everything was perfect before I told you. The hotel lobby, That's the medical plaza? The coffee? I was asking him questions about pregnancy. Matthew, I was planning a surprise. Stop. He held up his hand, backing away from her. Just stop lying. My mother showed my father surveillance footage. She showed him text messages. She had proof, Lisa. Real proof. And he died believing his son was being betrayed. Surveillance footage? Lisa's voice cracked. Matthew, whatever your mother showed him, it was edited. It was fake. You have to know that. Constance has never wanted us together. She's been trying to destroy our marriage since the beginning. Don't blame my mother for your choices. Matthew's hands clenched into fists. She loved my father. She would never lie to him, especially not when he was dying. What kind of monster would do that? The kind of monster who hates that her son married a black woman from the wrong side of town. Lisa's composure finally broke, tears streaming down her face. Matthew, I love you. I have never been with anyone else. This baby, these babies, they're yours. They're ours. Babies? The word hit him like a physical blow. I'm carrying twins. Lisa's hand moved to her stomach, protective, desperate. I found out last week. I was going to tell you on your birthday. I had this whole plan. Dr. Harrison was helping me arrange everything. Matthew, please, you have to believe me. He wanted to believe her. God, he wanted to believe her so badly it felt like his chest was caving in. But his father's face kept flashing in his mind. His father, pale and weak in that hospital bed, gripping Matthew's hand with what little strength he had left. My father never lied to me. Not once in his entire life. Matthew's voice dropped to barely a whisper. And with his dying breath, he tried to protect me from you. What does that tell you? It tells me your mother is a liar and a manipulator. Lisa was sobbing now, reaching for him. Matthew, please. Please don't do this. Let me show you the medical records. Let me prove it to you. Call Dr. Harrison right now. He'll explain everything. I don't want explanations. Matthew turned away from her, unable to look at her face anymore. I want you out. The silence that followed was deafening. What? Lisa's voice was so small, so broken. Out of this house, out of my life. He still couldn't look at her. If he looked at her, he might break. I'll have my lawyers draw up divorce papers. You'll get a settlement, but I want you gone by morning. Matthew, I'm pregnant. I'm pregnant with your babies. You can't just... Those babies aren't mine. He spun back to face her, and the words came out like weapons. They're his, whoever he is, and I don't want to see you or them ever again. Lisa's face went completely white. She stumbled backward, catching herself on the doorframe. For a moment, Matthew thought she might collapse. When she spoke again, her voice was so quiet, he almost didn't hear her. Your father loved me. He called me daughter. He told me I was the best thing that ever happened to you. Tears poured down her face, but her eyes held something Matthew had never seen before. Not anger. Something worse. Disappointment. He would be ashamed of you right now. The words struck him like a slap. Get out. I'm going. Lisa straightened, wiping her face with shaking hands. But Matthew, when you realize what you've done, when you finally see the truth, don't come looking for me, because I will never, ever forgive you for this. She walked out of the bedroom. Matthew heard her moving through the penthouse, heard drawers opening, heard the soft sounds of her packing. He wanted to stop her. Part of him screamed to run after her, to hold her, to believe her. But his father's words kept echoing, I'm sorry, son. I'm so sorry. An hour later, he heard the front door close. Matthew stood alone in their bedroom, surrounded by the life they'd built together. Photos on the dresser, her perfume on the vanity, the book she'd been reading on her nightstand. He picked up his phone and called his mother. Matthew, sweetheart. Constance's voice was thick with false sympathy. How are you holding up? She's gone. His voice sounded dead even to his own ears. "Oh, darling, I'm so sorry. But you did the right thing. Your father would be proud of you for being strong enough to—" Matthew hung up. He couldn't listen to any more words, couldn't think, couldn't feel. He walked to the window and looked out at the city. Somewhere out there, Lisa was alone, pregnant, crying, and he'd put her there. His phone buzzed with a text from his lawyer, already working on the divorce papers. Matthew stared at it, then at his reflection in the window. He looked like his father. Same jaw, same eyes, same man who'd warned him with his dying breath. Matthew told himself he'd done the right thing. He told himself his father wouldn't have lied. He told himself that love without trust was nothing. But deep in his chest, in a place he couldn't acknowledge yet, something whispered that he'd just made the biggest mistake of his life. He silenced that voice and called his lawyer back. By morning, Lisa Packer would be erased from his life completely. By morning, he could start forgetting. By morning, the pain would start to fade. He was wrong about all of it. Chapter 2: Surviving Alone. The emergency room lights were too bright, too harsh, and Lisa couldn't stop shaking. "Ma'am, you need to stay still." The nurse's voice seemed to come from far away. "Your blood pressure is dangerously high. You're at risk of losing the pregnancy." Lisa wanted to laugh at that. Losing the pregnancy. As if she hadn't already lost everything else. Her husband, her home, her life. What were two more hearts to break? But then she heard it. The sound that changed everything. Through the ultrasound machine came two tiny heartbeats, rapid and strong, fighting to survive, just like she was. "Twins," the doctor said softly, pointing at the screen. "You're carrying twin boys, Mrs. Potts." "Not Mrs. Potts." Lisa's voice came out hoarse. She'd been unable to speak for days after Matthew threw her out, the trauma stealing her words. This was the first full sentence she'd managed. Just Lisa Packer. She'd spent the last week in a shelter downtown, sleeping on a cot that smelled like bleach and desperation. The other women had been kind, but Lisa had barely been able to acknowledge them. She'd been drowning in a grief so profound, it felt physical, a weight on her chest that made breathing hurt. Then the bleeding started, and the cramping, and the terror. A woman at the shelter named Grace, who worked as a nurse at a free clinic, had driven her here in the middle of the night. Grace sat in the corner now, quiet but present, a stranger who'd shown more care than Lisa's own husband. "The babies are stable for now," the doctor continued, "but you're under extreme stress. Your body is trying to protect itself, which means it might reject the pregnancy. You need complete bed rest, no work, no stress, proper nutrition. Do you have somewhere safe to stay?" Lisa thought of the shelter, thought of the cot, thought of the noise and the chaos and the impossibility of rest. "Yes," she lied. The doctor didn't look convinced, but he nodded. "I'm prescribing medication to help stabilize the pregnancy. Take it religiously. And Miss Packer, if you experience any more bleeding, you come straight back here. Understood?" Lisa nodded, staring at the ultrasound image the technician had printed for her. Two tiny shapes, barely visible, fighting for their chance to exist. Grace drove her back to the shelter as dawn broke over the city. The streets were empty, the world quiet, and Lisa felt like a ghost haunting her own life. "You need to eat," Grace said, pulling into a drive-through. She ordered without asking Lisa what she wanted, just got her a meal, and insisted she eat it. "Those babies need nutrients." Lisa forced down the food, tasting nothing. Her phone sat dead in her purse. She'd turned it off after Matthew's lawyer had called to discuss the divorce settlement. The lawyer had been cold, efficient, explaining that Matthew was willing to be generous if Lisa signed quickly and quietly. Generous. As if money could replace a home, a marriage, a father for her children. I need to find work, Lisa said as they pulled up to the shelter. I can't afford the medication, can't afford anything. You heard the doctor. Bed rest means bed rest. Grace turned to face her, and Lisa saw something fierce in the older woman's eyes. I've seen women lose babies from stress. I've held their hands while they bled out their futures. You will not be one of them. I don't have a choice. There's always a choice. Grace reached into her bag and pulled out a laptop, old but functional. My daughter left this when she moved out. You know computers? I have a business degree. Had a career before I married Matthew. Lisa's voice turned bitter. I gave it up to support his company, to be the perfect wife his mother hated. Then use that degree. Grace placed the laptop in Lisa's hands. The shelter has internet. You lie flat, you rest those babies, and you find a way to work from that cot. You're smart. You're educated. Don't let that man take that from you, too. Lisa looked at the laptop, then at Grace. Why are you helping me? Because I was you once. Grace's voice went soft. Different man, same story. He threw me out when I was pregnant, told me the baby wasn't his. My daughter is grown now and she's never met her father. But we survived. We built a life, and you will too. The shelter was waking up when they walked in. Women shuffling to the communal bathroom. Children crying, the smell of institutional coffee and yesterday's hope. Lisa went to her cot and lay down, the laptop beside her. She stared at the ceiling, at the water stains that looked like maps to nowhere, and felt the babies move inside her. Tiny flutters, small miracles. She opened the laptop and started searching for remote work, data entry, virtual assistant positions, anything she could do lying down. Hours passed. Her back ached, her head pounded, but she filled out applications, wrote cover letters, sent her resume into the void. A woman in the cot next to hers introduced herself as Tanya. She had a daughter who couldn't sleep without noise, so she hummed constantly, a low sound that should have been annoying, but somehow wasn't. What are you having? Tanya asked, nodding at Lisa's stomach. Boys, twins. Twins, Tanya smiled. Double the blessing. You got names picked out? Lisa hadn't thought about names, hadn't let herself think beyond surviving the next hour. But now, lying in this shelter with strangers who treated her with more kindness than her own husband had, she let herself imagine a future. Jasper and Sage, she said softly. The words came from nowhere and everywhere. Her grandmother's garden, the flowers she'd loved as a child, the beauty she wanted her sons to carry. After flowers. Those are beautiful names. Tanya went back to humming, and Lisa went back to job hunting. That night, Lisa's body tried to reject the pregnancy again. She felt the cramping, the warning signs, and Grace rushed her back to the hospital. The emergency room doctor was different this time, younger, less sympathetic. You need to reduce stress, he said, like it was simple, like she could just wish away her circumstances. I'm trying, Lisa whispered. Try harder. These babies won't survive if you don't. Grace held her hand as they monitored the heartbeats, both still there, both still fighting. When they returned to the shelter, Lisa made a vow. She placed her hands on her stomach and spoke to her sons in the darkness. I don't know how we're going to make it. I don't know where we'll live, or what we'll eat, or how I'll afford to bring you into this world. But I promise you this. I will build you a life worth living. I will show you what real love looks like, and I will make sure you never, ever doubt that you were wanted. A week later, Lisa got her first response to a job application. A small company needed someone to manage their data entry remotely. The pay was minimal, but it was something. She worked lying down, laptop propped on her stomach, babies kicking against the keyboard. The other women at the shelter brought her food, reminded her to take her medication, covered for her when she was too exhausted to move. These strangers became her family. These broken women who had nothing gave her everything. Lisa's body slowly stabilized. The bleeding stopped. The babies grew stronger. And in the quiet hours before dawn, when the shelter was finally silent, she began to plan. She researched, starting a business, looked into what it would take to create a product, market it, build something from nothing. She had no money, no resources, no safety net, but she had her mind, her education, her will to survive, and she had Jasper and Sage, who kicked and rolled and reminded her every moment that she was fighting for 3 lives now, not just one. Matthew's lawyer called again. The settlement offer had increased. Constance wanted this over quickly, wanted Lisa to disappear. Lisa refused it all. She didn't want Matthew's money, didn't want anything that tied her to the man who destroyed her. She wanted to build her own empire. And she would. The laptop screen glowed in the darkness as Lisa researched skincare ingredients. She'd noticed how the harsh soap at the shelter damaged her skin and the skin of the other women. Hospital-grade cleaners that stripped away natural oils. Products designed without thought for black skin, for textured hair, for bodies that needed gentleness. She could create something better. She could build something that mattered. It was an impossible dream, a fantasy born of desperation. But as Jasper and Sage tumbled inside her, as Grace checked on her one more time before her night shift, as Tanya's humming filled the shelter with something close to peace, Lisa let herself believe. Somewhere across the city, Matthew slept in their penthouse, surrounded by everything and feeling nothing. And here in this shelter, Lisa slept on a cot, surrounded by nothing and feeling everything. She knew which one of them was richer. Chapter 3. The Impossible Rise. Lisa's water broke in the middle of the night, alone in Dr. Thompson's borrowed apartment. Pain ripping through her body, weeks too early. Grace got her to the hospital in time to hear the words that stopped her heart. "We need to deliver now. The babies are in distress." Jasper came out screaming, tiny fists already fighting. Sage followed silent, too silent, and was rushed away before Lisa could touch him. "Your son isn't breathing well on his own," the doctor said, and Lisa's world went white. The NICU became Lisa's entire universe, 2 incubators, 2 sons, one fighting loudly, one fighting quietly, both so impossibly small. Jasper gained weight steadily, his personality already demanding attention even from inside plastic walls. But Sage struggled. Every day brought new crises, breathing episodes, infection scares, numbers that dropped and made alarms scream. Lisa worked from a chair between them, laptop balanced on her knees, one hand on each incubator. The medical bills mounted faster than she could count. Her remote job barely covered a fraction. Dr. Amara Thompson found her crying over invoices at 3 in the morning. "What if I told you there's another way?" Dr. Thompson pulled up a chair. "That business plan you've been scribbling. Let me invest." "I can't take your money. I don't even know if it would work." "I'm not giving you money. I'm investing in something I believe in." "In you." Dr. Thompson's eyes were fierce. "Those nurses are already fighting over the samples you made in the kitchenette. That's not luck. That's genius." 3 days later, Sage's lungs collapsed. Lisa stood outside surgery, Grace holding her as she shattered. This time the breaking was different. Not grief, but rage. Rage at Matthew for not being there. Rage at Constance for destroying them. Rage at a world that let babies suffer for their parents' mistakes. When Sage survived, barely, with a long recovery ahead, Lisa made a decision. She would build something so powerful that her sons would never be vulnerable again. Never dependent. Never at the mercy of anyone's cruelty. Dr. Thompson's investment bought supplies. Lisa mixed her first real batch of healing balm in the hospital kitchenette while her sons slept. Her hands shook, but they didn't stop. The NICU nurses were her first customers, buying product with their own money because it actually worked. Word spread to other departments. A burn unit nurse posted before and after photos that went viral overnight. Orders flooded in. Lisa packaged products between feeding Jasper and monitoring Sage's oxygen levels, shipped boxes from the hospital mailroom, built an empire from a chair beside plastic incubators. When the twins finally came home after 8 weeks, they came home to possibility. Dr. Thompson's spare bedroom became a nursery. Her living room became a factory. Her kitchen became a laboratory. Lisa worked in stolen hours, while the babies slept, while they ate, in the minutes between crises. Jasper was easy, loud, demanding, clear about what he needed. Sage was harder, quiet, watchful, his NICU trauma showing in how he startled at sudden sounds, how he needed Lisa's hand to sleep, how anxiety lived in his small body, but they were alive. They were hers, and they were enough. Grace retired from nursing to help full-time. They hired women from the shelter, single mothers who needed chances like Lisa had needed chances. Packer Beauty became a movement, not just a company. A small retailer called, then a larger one, then national interest that made Lisa's head spin. She negotiated every deal with babies on her hip, exhaustion in her bones, and steel in her voice. Never apologizing, never backing down, never accepting less than her company deserved. The medical debt was crushing, a shadow over every victory. But she paid it down, dollar by dollar, refusing to let it break her. And every time she wanted to quit, she looked at her sons. Jasper, with his fierce laugh that filled rooms. Sage, with his gentle soul that saw everything. She'd built this for them. She'd build anything for them. Across the city, Matthew's company hemorrhaged money and talent. His CFO walked out mid-quarter. 3 board members resigned in one day. Investors pulled funding with carefully worded emails about shifting priorities. He didn't understand. The strategies that had always worked suddenly failed. The instincts that had made him millions now lost them. What he didn't know, what he'd never known, was that Lisa had been his secret weapon. Her financial mind seeing patterns he missed, her strategic thinking preventing disasters before they formed, her ability to read people and markets and futures. Without her, he was just another mediocre businessman who'd gotten lucky, and his luck had run out. Matthew sold the penthouse, moved to a small apartment, watched his empire crumble like sandcastles at high tide. Lisa didn't think about Matthew anymore. Didn't wonder or worry or waste energy on ghosts. She thought about her sons, her company, her future. The past was dead. She'd buried it between heartbeats and hospital machines. And from that grave, she'd grown something beautiful, something that was entirely, completely hers. Chapter 4. Building the Empire. "Mama, Sage is hogging the tablet." Jasper's voice carried from Lisa's office couch to her desk, where she was supposed to be reviewing quarterly projections. Lisa looked up from spreadsheets that showed Packer Beauty's explosive growth, numbers that still made her dizzy sometimes, to see her sons in their usual battle. Jasper, all wild energy, was trying to grab the device. Sage, quieter but stubborn, held it close to his chest. They were 6 now, so different from the fragile NICU babies they'd been, yet still carrying traces of those early struggles. 15 minutes each. "Jasper, you can wait." Lisa's CEO voice worked on her kids better than her mum voice sometimes. "But he's had it forever." Jasper threw himself dramatically on the couch, one arm over his eyes like a tragic hero. The performance would have been funny if he wasn't kicking his feet against the cushions. Sage pressed closer to Lisa's side, tablet still clutched tight. He was smaller than Jasper, his frame showing what those early weeks had cost him. The anxiety that had been born in the NICU still lived in him, in how he needed control over small things, routines, Lisa's constant presence. "What are you working on, baby?" A drawing. Sage's voice was soft, hopeful. "Of our family. You, me, Jasper, Grace, Dr. Thompson, everyone who stayed." Lisa's heart squeezed. Everyone who stayed. The words held everything they'd survived. The investor meeting waiting downstairs didn't matter. The $1 million deal didn't matter. This, Her sons safe and arguing over tablets. This was what mattered. Her assistant knocked. "Miss Packer, they're ready for you." The meeting went like they always did now. Companies courting her, retailers begging to carry her products, everyone wanting a piece of what she'd built from shelter cots and hospital chairs. Lisa negotiated hard, never forgetting where she'd come from, never letting anyone treat her success as luck rather than earned. Afterward, Grace found her staring out the window. "You're exhausted," Grace said simply. No judgment, just fact. "I can't slow down. The moment I slow down..." "You're not in that shelter anymore, Lisa. You're not fighting to survive. You've survived. You've won." But had she? Lisa looked at her sons, now drawing together, Jasper having gotten his turn and immediately losing interest. She'd built an empire, created stability, given them everything material, but she was always tired, always working, always proving something to ghosts. Her phone rang. Unknown number. "Miss Packer, Daniel Cruz from the Business News Network. We'd love to feature you in our Women in Business segment. Your story, from homelessness to CEO, it's exactly what we're looking for." National television. The exposure could take Packer Beauty to another level entirely. "I'd be honored." They scheduled it for next month. Lisa hung up and felt ice flood her veins. National television meant visibility. Visibility meant Matthew might see her. For years, she'd existed in circles he'd never touch, building her world far from his ruins. But this changed everything. Grace watched her face. "What's wrong?" "He might see the interview, find us." "Then he finds you powerful and successful. He finds out what he threw away." Grace's voice softened. "But more than that, he finds out he has sons. You ready for that?" Lisa wasn't sure she'd ever be ready. That night, putting the boys to bed felt heavier. Jasper fell asleep mid-sentence, sprawled across his bed with his favorite dinosaur clutched in one hand, mouth open, drooling onto his pillow. Sage needed longer, needed Lisa beside him, her hand rubbing circles on his back. "Mama?" His voice was small in the darkness. "Why don't we have a dad?" The question came sometimes, usually at night when Sage's anxiety was highest. "Because your father made a choice a long time ago, a bad choice." "What choice?" "When you're older, I'll explain everything, I promise." "Jasper says we don't need a dad because we have you, but sometimes I wonder what it would be like if he ever thinks about us." Lisa pulled Sage closer, feeling her heart break and rebuild simultaneously. "Whatever your father thinks or doesn't think, it doesn't change the truth. You are wanted. You are loved. You are my whole world." Sage relaxed against her, breathing evening out into sleep. But Lisa lay there longer, thinking about Matthew for the first time in years. Did he ever wonder? Did he ever regret? Did he know what he'd destroyed? She pushed the thoughts away. Matthew was her past, a painful chapter in a story that had moved far beyond him. She had everything she needed right here. Her sons, her company, her hard-won success. So why did some part of her still feel like something was missing? Like there was a hole she couldn't name, couldn't fill, couldn't heal, no matter how much she built or achieved or proved? Across the city, Matthew stared at eviction notices and final warnings. The company was gone, sold for nothing to cover debts. The apartment would be next. Everything he'd built had turned to ash. He'd discovered his mother's lies years ago, found the Photoshop expert, the fake surveillance, the elaborate web of deception. He'd cut Constance out completely, but the damage was permanent. Lisa was gone. His father was dead. His life was ruins. He'd searched for her for years, hired investigators who found nothing, followed dead ends that led nowhere. She'd vanished completely, taking his unborn children, if they'd even existed, if she'd even been pregnant, if any of it had been real. Matthew didn't know anymore, couldn't separate truth from his mother's poison. All he knew was that he'd destroyed the only woman he'd ever loved, and the payment for that sin was everything he'd ever had or would have. He packed what little he owned into boxes and prepared to lose the apartment. Rock bottom was coming, and he had no idea it would be the beginning of something else entirely. Chapter 5. The Boy's Discovery. Jasper found the photo on a rainy afternoon when Lisa was in back-to-back meetings and Grace was supposed to be watching them, but had gotten distracted by a phone call. It was in Lisa's bedroom, in the drawer of her nightstand, tucked beneath old papers and forgotten things. The drawer that was supposed to be locked but wasn't, the one Lisa thought was secure but had left vulnerable in her rush that morning. The photo showed a younger version of their mother in a white dress, smiling like the sun itself, radiant with happiness. Standing next to her was a man in a suit, handsome and dark-haired, looking at Lisa like she was the only person in the world who mattered. "Sage, come look at this," Jasper whispered, even though Grace was downstairs and couldn't hear them anyway. Sage appeared in the doorway, hesitant as always. He never liked breaking rules, never liked doing things that might upset his mama, but curiosity pulled him forward, stronger than his caution. "Is that Mama?" Sage stared at the photo, eyes wide. "Yeah, and I think that's our dad." Jasper's voice was strange, a mix of excitement and anger and confusion all tangled together. The word hung between them. Dad. A concept they'd thought about but never really understood. Other kids at school had dads who picked them up after class, who came to soccer games and school performances, who existed in their lives in ways Jasper and Sage couldn't imagine. Why does she keep it hidden? Sage touched the photo gently, like it might break or disappear if he wasn't careful. "I don't know, but I'm going to find out who he is." Jasper's voice held that determined edge that meant he wouldn't let this go, the same stubbornness that got him in trouble at school sometimes. They took the photo back to Jasper's room, moving quietly through the house. While Grace made dinner downstairs, they could hear her humming and pots clanging, the familiar sounds of their routine. They huddled over Jasper's tablet, trying to figure out how to solve this mystery. It was Sage who thought of it, his voice excited. "The internet. We can search the internet. People find things there all the time." But they didn't know the man's name, didn't know anything except what he looked like in this one frozen moment of happiness. "Wait." Jasper grabbed the photo again, squinting at it in the bedroom light. "There's writing on the back. I can see it." He flipped it over. In Lisa's handwriting, slightly faded but still legible, Matthew and Lisa Potts, wedding day. Matthew Potts. They looked at each other, a whole world of possibility opening up before them, terrifying and exciting in equal measure. Jasper typed the name into the search bar with trembling fingers. Results flooded the screen more than they expected. Matthew Potts, former tech CEO. The fall of Potts Industries. Where is Matthew Potts now? Tech mogul loses empire. They clicked on article after article, reading about a man who'd once been rich and powerful but had lost everything. A company that had collapsed spectacularly. A life that had fallen apart in ways that seemed almost impossible. "He looks sad," Sage said softly, pointing to a recent photo of Matthew leaving a building, shoulders slumped, face haggard and older than the wedding photo, like years had carved pain into his features. "He looks old," Jasper said, less sympathetically, his voice hard. He clicked to another article, reading quickly. "Says here his company went bankrupt. He's nobody now, lost everything." They read about the company's failure, piecing together a story from fragments. About Matthew's father dying, something about his mother, about things falling apart in ways they didn't fully understand but could feel were important. About his mother being arrested for fraud years later, though the articles didn't explain details, didn't connect the dots in ways that made sense to two young boys trying to understand their own story. But nowhere did they find anything about Lisa, about a wife, about children, about two boys who shared this man's DNA. It was like their mother had never existed in his life, erased completely from his history. Why doesn't it say anything about Mama? Sage's voice trembled, tears threatening. Why is she not there? Did he erase her? Maybe he erased her, like she erased him. Jasper's jaw set stubbornly, the way it did when he was trying not to cry. Maybe they both wanted to forget. But why? What happened? They didn't have answers. Just more questions piling up like weights on their small shoulders. Over the next few days, they researched obsessively, every spare moment a chance to learn more. Every time they had the tablet, they were looking up their father, trying to piece together the puzzle of their own existence. Sage started having more anxiety, worse than usual. Couldn't sleep without nightmares. Had dreams about fathers who disappeared, about being left behind, about not being wanted. Kept asking Lisa questions she clearly didn't want to answer, questions that made her face go sad and distant. Mama, why don't we have a dad like other kids? Lisa would get this look on her face, sad and far away, like she was seeing ghosts. Because your father made choices that meant he couldn't be in your life. What choices? Choices I'll explain when you're older, when you can understand better. But Sage didn't want to wait until he was older. He wanted to understand now, needed to understand why they were different, why their family was incomplete. He started drawing pictures of what he imagined his father might be like, showed them to Jasper, who mostly just shrugged, trying to pretend he didn't care even though Sage knew he did. Jasper's reaction was different. He became angry, defensive, started getting into fights at school with kids who talked about their dads, who complained about fathers who were too strict or too busy, kids who had no idea how lucky they were. We don't need him, Jasper insisted to Sage one night, fierce and hurting. We have Mama. She's worth 100 dads. She's worth everything. But even Jasper couldn't hide his curiosity completely, couldn't pretend he didn't wonder. They found an old interview with Matthew, from before everything fell apart, from when he'd been successful and confident. He talked about business, about vision, about building something that mattered and would last. He sounds smart, Sage admitted quietly. He sounds like he thinks he's smart, Jasper countered, but his voice was uncertain. Besides, smart people don't throw away their families. Smart people don't hurt people the way he must have hurt Mama. One night, Lisa caught them. She'd come to say goodnight, like she always did, and found them both on Jasper's bed, tablet between them, Matthew's face frozen on the screen mid-sentence in some interview. The look on her face made Sage's chest hurt, made him want to take it back, to unsee what they'd seen. Boys. Her voice was carefully controlled, too controlled. What are you doing? We found your wedding photo, Jasper said, deciding honesty was better than lies. He was a terrible liar anyway, always got this weird twitch in his eye that gave him away. We wanted to know about our dad. We needed to know. Lisa sat down on the bed slowly, looking suddenly exhausted, older than she had that morning. For a long moment she didn't speak, just looked at the screen, at Matthew's face, and Sage saw her hands shake slightly. I should have told you, she finally said, voice thick with emotion. I should have explained before you went looking. This is my fault. Tell us now. Sage pressed close to her side, needing her warmth, her solid presence. Please, Mama, we need to know. So Lisa told them, not everything, not the details that would break them, but the truth, simple and painful and real. Your father and I were married. We loved each other very much, more than I knew was possible to love someone. But his mother didn't want us together, and she lied to him about me. She made him believe I'd betrayed him, that I'd been unfaithful, and instead of trusting me, instead of believing in our love, your father threw me out. Lisa's hands shook as she spoke, her voice breaking. I was pregnant with you when he did this. I tried to tell him, but he wouldn't listen. He wouldn't hear me. So he didn't want us? Jasper's voice was hard, fighting tears, trying to be strong. He didn't know about you. Or he thought you weren't his. His mother had poisoned him with lies, and he believed her instead of me. But she lied. You didn't betray him. Sage needed this clarified, needed to know his mama was good, that this wasn't her fault. I didn't. I was faithful. I loved your father with everything I had. But love isn't always enough when there's no trust, when someone chooses to believe the worst of you instead of fighting for the truth. They processed this, these two boys trying to understand adult pain, adult mistakes, adult consequences. Jasper wiped his eyes roughly, angry at himself for crying, for being weak. Sage let his tears fall freely, sniffling loudly. Have you talked to him since? Jasper asked. No, never. Does he know about us now? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. It doesn't matter. Sage's eyes filled with more tears, his heart breaking. Does he want to know about us? Lisa pulled both boys close, holding them like they were still babies instead of growing boys with breaking hearts, with questions too big for their small shoulders. I don't know what your father wants. I only know what I want. And I want you to know that his choice, his mistake, had nothing to do with your worth. You are wanted. You are loved. You are my everything, my whole world. But not his everything, Jasper said bitterly, then hiccuped from crying, which made him even more angry at himself. Lisa didn't deny it, couldn't deny it. The truth hung between them, heavy and undeniable. They sat together in the quiet, three hearts that had learned to beat as one, three souls bound by love and loss and survival. I want to meet him, Sage said suddenly, the words bursting out before he could stop them. Absolutely not. Lisa's response was immediate, fierce. Why? He's our father. Don't we have a right to know him? He's a stranger who hurt me very badly. I won't let him hurt you too. I won't let him break your hearts the way he broke mine. But what if he's changed? Sage's voice broke, desperate with hope. What if he's sorry? What if he wants to know us now? Lisa looked at her youngest son, saw the hope there, the desperate need to believe their father was more than his worst moment, more than the mistake that had created their family. Baby, people don't change that much. Not really. You did, Jasper pointed out, still hiccuping slightly. You were poor, and now you're rich. You were sad, and now you're strong. You changed everything about your life. Lisa didn't have an answer for that, couldn't argue with the truth of it. The boys fell asleep that night with more questions than answers, their small worlds expanded and complicated. But they'd made a pact between them, a silent agreement sealed with pinky promises and whispered words after Lisa left. They would find their father. They would understand the truth, the whole truth. And maybe, just maybe, they could have what other kids had. A family that was whole. Chapter 6. The Collision. The elementary school counselor called Lisa during a board meeting, her voice tight with barely controlled panic. Miss Packer, I'm sorry to disturb you, but Sage isn't in class. We've searched the entire building and the grounds. He's not here. Lisa's world stopped. Everything else ceased to matter in that instant. The board, the meeting, the $1 million deal they were discussing, the future of her company. None of it mattered. What do you mean, he's not there? He was in morning attendance but disappeared during lunch period. We've called the police. I wanted to notify you immediately. We have officers on site, and we're reviewing security footage. Lisa was out of the building in seconds, Grace and her security team mobilizing around her, the school, the neighborhood, every place Sage might go. But Lisa knew. Somehow, deep in her bones, with a mother's instinct that couldn't be denied, she knew. Sage had gone looking for his father, The shelter director called her as she was en route, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. "Miss Packer, a boy is here asking about someone. He says you're his mother. He's safe, but you should come quickly." Lisa's hands shook on the steering wheel so badly Grace had to help her steady them. Grace was beside her, steady and calm, but Lisa felt like she was breaking apart, shattering into pieces. When they arrived, the director led them to the common room, and Lisa's heart stopped completely. There was Sage, sitting on a worn couch next to a man who looked vaguely familiar and completely broken, like he'd been shattered and poorly glued back together. Matthew. He'd aged beyond what years alone could account for. The years had carved lines into his face, deep grooves of pain and regret. He wore simple clothes, nothing like the expensive suits she remembered from their life together. His hands were rough, working hands, scarred and worn, and his eyes held a sadness so profound it was almost physical, a weight that seemed to press down on his shoulders. He was reading to a small group of children, including Sage, who watched him with an intensity that broke Lisa's heart into even smaller pieces. Matthew's voice was gentle as he read, patient with the kids who interrupted constantly. One kept asking why. After every single sentence, another was picking his nose enthusiastically and showing his findings to his neighbor. Matthew just smiled and kept reading, kind in a way Lisa had forgotten he could be, tender in a way that made her chest ache. Then he looked up and saw her. The book fell from his hands, hitting the floor with a thud that echoed in the sudden silence. His face went completely white, like he'd seen a ghost. And for a moment, Lisa thought he might actually faint, might collapse right there. "Lisa," he breathed, like a prayer and a curse combined, like a name that held his whole world. Sage jumped up, recognizing the storm on his mother's face. "Mama, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare you. I just wanted to see outside. Now." Lisa's voice was ice, harder than she'd ever heard it. She grabbed Sage's hand, pulling him toward the door with more force than she meant to, but she couldn't help looking back, couldn't help one glance. Matthew had stood, was taking a step toward them, his whole body leaning forward like a plant toward sunlight. His eyes were fixed on Sage, and there was recognition there, horror, understanding, the pieces clicking into place. "The eyes," Matthew whispered, his voice breaking. "He has my eyes. He has my father's eyes." Lisa's grip on Sage tightened so hard the boy winced. "Stay away from us. Lisa, please, just let me." "I said stay away." The words came out sharp, desperate, filled with years of buried pain. "You gave up any right to us years ago. You made your choice." "Us?" Matthew's gaze dropped to Sage again, really looking at him now, seeing all the features that marked him as Matthew's son, then back to Lisa, understanding dawning like a terrible sunrise. "He's mine. Both of them. You had twins. Dear God, Lisa, I have sons." "You have nothing." Lisa pulled Sage toward the exit, her vision blurring with tears she refused to shed. "You made sure of that when you threw me away like garbage." She didn't wait for his response. Couldn't stay in that room for another second without falling apart completely. Outside, she collapsed against Grace, who'd followed them out. Sage was crying, apologizing over and over, explaining through sobs that he'd just wanted to see what his father was like, had looked up the address for the shelter online, and taken the bus by himself like a big kid, had been so careful. "He seemed nice, Mama. He was reading to kids. He was helping people. He smiled at me and asked my name, and I didn't tell him who I was, but I think he knew anyway because he kept looking at me strange. Maybe he's changed. Maybe he's different now." Lisa wanted to scream that people don't change, that Matthew had destroyed her when she was most vulnerable, when she'd needed him most. That nice didn't erase cruelty, that kindness now didn't undo abandonment then, But looking at her son's desperate face, his eyes pleading for her to understand, she couldn't crush that hope completely. "Get in the car," she said quietly, her voice shaking. The drive home was silent except for Sage's occasional sniffles. Sage stared out the window, tears streaming down his face, leaving tracks on his cheeks. Lisa gripped the steering wheel so hard her knuckles went white, her whole body shaking with emotion she couldn't name. When they got home, Jasper was waiting, having heard everything from Grace's quick phone call explaining the situation. "You went to see him?" Jasper's face was furious, betrayed. "Without me? You went to find our dad, and you didn't even tell me?" "I'm sorry," Sage sobbed, fresh tears starting. "I just wanted to know." "To know what? If the dad who abandoned us might actually care?" Jasper's voice cracked, his own tears starting despite his anger. "He doesn't, Sage. He made that clear when he threw Mama away." "You don't know that. You didn't see him. He looked sad, Jasper. He looked like he's been hurting too, like maybe he regrets what he did." "Good. He should hurt. He should hurt forever for what he did to Mama." "Boys, enough." Lisa's voice cut through their argument like a knife. "Both of you, living room now." They sat on the couch, Jasper still angry, crossing his arms and glaring at the wall, refusing to look at anyone. Sage still crying, wiping his nose on his sleeve repeatedly, making it snotty and gross. Lisa stood in front of them, trying to find words that would make sense of this impossible situation, trying to be the mother they needed, even though she felt like she was drowning. "What your father did to us was wrong. Unforgivably wrong. He threw me out when I was pregnant with you. He believed lies instead of trusting me. He broke my heart in ways I'm still healing from, wounds that still bleed sometimes." Lisa's voice shook but held firm. "But he's also your father, and I can't change that biological fact, much as I might wish I could sometimes." "So what do we do?" Sage asked, his voice small and scared and so young. "I don't know yet. I need time to think, time to figure out what's right." That night, Lisa couldn't sleep. She kept seeing Matthew's face. The shock when he'd seen her, the recognition when he'd looked at Sage, the way he'd whispered about eyes and sons and grief. "He has my eyes." Lisa had spent years trying to forget Matthew's eyes, but they stared at her every day in Jasper's face, in Sage's gaze, a constant reminder of what she'd lost and what she'd gained. Her phone rang at midnight, unknown number. She knew who it was before she answered. "Lisa." Matthew's voice, and it was like being transported back in time. Like the years fell away, and she was standing in their bedroom again, hearing him destroy their world. "Please, don't hang up, please. I'm begging you." "How did you get this number?" "I still have connections. A few anyway." "Lisa, I know I shouldn't have called, but I had to. I saw him, our son. I saw Sage, and I knew immediately. Does he have a brother? You said twins. Jasper and Sage, I found their names online. Are they both mine? Please, Lisa, please tell me." "This conversation is over. Please, please just tell me if they're okay, if you're okay. If I can do anything, anything at all to make this right. I know I can't. I know it's impossible, but please just tell me they're okay." "Can what, Matthew? Fix this? Be a father? You gave up that right when you threw me into the street like I was nothing." Lisa's voice broke, years of buried pain flooding out like a dam breaking. "Do you have any idea what my life was like after you destroyed me? I was homeless, Matthew. Pregnant and homeless, living in a shelter, sleeping on a cot. I gave birth in a hospital I couldn't afford. My sons, our sons, spent weeks in the NICU, fighting to survive while I worked from a chair beside their beds to pay medical bills that are still crushing me. And you want to know if they're okay?" The silence on the other end was absolute, stretching so long Lisa thought he'd hung up. "I didn't know," Matthew finally said, and he sounded wrecked, destroyed, barely holding together. Lisa, I swear on everything I hold sacred, I didn't know. If I had known, if I had any idea, but you didn't care enough to find out. You made your choice. You chose your mother's lies over your wife. You chose pride over trust. You chose to believe the worst of me instead of fighting for us, instead of believing in what we had. Lisa was crying now, years of buried pain flooding out. And now you see one of your sons by accident, and suddenly you care. It's too late, Matthew. It's too late for all of us. I know. His voice was barely audible, broken. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I know I destroyed everything. I know there's no fixing what I did. But Lisa, those boys are mine too. Don't I have any right? No. The word was final. Absolute. You have no rights. You're a stranger to them, your DNA and nothing more, and you'll stay that way. She hung up, her hands shaking so badly she dropped the phone. But even as she did, even as she tried to convince herself she meant it, she knew it was a lie. Because Sage had seen Matthew, had talked to him, had come home with questions and hope and a desperate need to know his father. And Lisa didn't know how to protect her sons from the truth anymore, didn't know how to keep them safe from a man who had already hurt them just by existing, by being absent, by throwing them away before they were even born. Matthew Potts was back in their lives, whether she wanted him there or not. And everything was about to change. Chapter 7. The Reckoning. The restraining order arrived at Matthew's apartment on a Tuesday morning, delivered by a process server who looked bored with other people's tragedies. Matthew stared at the papers, reading the same lines over and over until they burned into his brain. Lisa was requesting he stay away from her, from the boys, from their school, from anywhere they might be. A legal barrier between him and the family he'd destroyed. He didn't fight it, didn't call a lawyer, didn't even consider contesting it. How could he? She was right. He had no rights. He'd thrown them away when he'd thrown her out, when he'd chosen poison over truth. But knowing he deserved this didn't make it hurt less, didn't make the pain any easier to bear. The shelter director found him in the kitchen an hour later, staring at nothing, the papers still clutched in his hands. "Everything okay, Matthew?" "I saw my sons yesterday." The words felt surreal, impossible. "I didn't know they existed until one of them walked into this building looking for me." The director sat down heavily, the chair creaking under his weight. "The Packer twins. I should have seen it. They have your face, your features. It's obvious now that I know. Lisa has a restraining order against me now. I can't go near them, can't see them, can't be part of their lives in any way." "Can you blame her after what you did?" "No." Matthew folded the papers carefully, his hands surprisingly steady. "I blame myself. For everything. For all of it." He went through his day mechanically, moving like a robot through familiar motions. Served meals to people who needed them. Helped with job applications for men trying to rebuild their lives. Read to children who weren't his and never would be, who had fathers who loved them or fathers who'd failed them but were trying. But his mind was on Jasper and Sage, the names he'd learned from desperate internet searching the night before, lying awake in the dark, looking at every photo he could find, trying to piece together the lives of the sons he'd never known. His sons, living, breathing proof of everything he'd destroyed. At home that night, Matthew pulled out the box he kept hidden in his closet, the one he'd never been able to throw away. Inside were Lisa's things, the few items she'd left behind in her hurried escape. A hair tie that still smelled faintly like her. A book she'd been reading, bookmark still in place. A photo of them at the beach, happy and whole and impossibly young. He'd kept them all these years, unable to let go completely, holding on to ghosts. Now he added something new. A printout of Sage's school photo he'd found online through the school's public directory, feeling like a stalker but unable to stop himself. The boy stared at the camera with serious eyes, so much like Matthew's own that it hurt to look at, like seeing his own past reflected back. Where was Jasper's photo? He'd searched, but found nothing. The school directory only showed one twin. Why? Matthew stayed up all night researching everything he could find about Lisa Packer, the articles about her company, the interviews where she talked about overcoming adversity, about building something from nothing, the success story that made him sick with pride and shame and regret all mixed together until he couldn't separate one emotion from another. She'd built an empire from nothing while he'd watched his crumble into dust. She'd raised their sons alone while he'd wallowed in self-pity and regret. She'd survived his cruelty and become something magnificent, something powerful, something that should have been impossible, and he'd become nothing, less than nothing. Days passed. Matthew respected the restraining order, didn't try to contact Lisa or go near the boys, stayed away from their school, their home, anywhere they might be. But he couldn't stop thinking about them, couldn't stop seeing Sage's face, couldn't stop wondering about Jasper. Then Grace appeared at the shelter. He recognized her immediately, though he couldn't place from where at first. Then it clicked. The hospital, maybe. The shelter from before. She walked up to him directly, no hesitation, her face hard. "Matthew Potts?" "Yes." "I'm Grace. I was Lisa's friend when she lived here, when you threw her out and she had nowhere to go." Grace's voice was hard but not cruel, factual. "I held her hand when she almost lost those babies, multiple times. I drove her to the hospital when she was bleeding out her pregnancy, when her body was trying to reject your sons because of the stress you'd caused. I watched her build a life from absolutely nothing while you had everything." Matthew felt like he might be sick, his stomach churning. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because Lisa won't. Because those boys deserve to know the truth about what they survived. And because despite everything, despite all the reasons I should hate you, I think you deserve to know what your choices cost." Grace pulled out her phone, showed him photos that made his vision blur. Lisa in the shelter, visibly pregnant, exhausted beyond measure. "This is what you did to her. This is your legacy." "I know." Matthew's voice broke completely. "I know, and I can never fix it. I know I destroyed her. I know what I did. No, you can't fix it. The damage is permanent, but you can face it. You can own what you did instead of hiding from it." Grace put her phone away. "Those boys are asking about you. Sage especially. He wants to know his father. He has this idea that maybe you're good, that maybe you made a mistake, but you're sorry. Lisa has a restraining order. Lisa is terrified you'll hurt those boys the way you hurt her. Terrified you'll let them love you and then throw them away when it gets hard, or when someone tells you lies about them. Prove you won't. Prove you've changed. Prove you're worthy of knowing them." Grace started to leave, then turned back. "And Matthew? Those boys spent weeks in the NICU. Sage almost died multiple times because Lisa couldn't afford his medicine and was trying to start her business to support them. You want to know your sons? Start by understanding what they survived despite you, what Lisa sacrificed to keep them alive." She left Matthew standing there, drowning in guilt and grief and a pain so profound he couldn't breathe. That night, he made a decision that would change everything. He couldn't contact Lisa directly, couldn't violate the restraining order, couldn't force his way into their lives, but he could show her, through actions instead of words, through choices instead of promises, that he'd changed. Matthew sold everything he had left, the furniture that filled his small apartment, the car he barely drove anymore, everything of value, everything he owned. He donated every cent to Lisa's foundation for single mothers, the one she'd built to help women in situations like hers, women who'd been destroyed and were trying to rebuild. He enrolled in therapy, real therapy, with a professional who specialized in trauma and grief, to deal with his father's death and his mother's manipulation, to understand why he'd been so quick to believe lies, so willing to destroy his own happiness, so ready to choose poison over truth. He started a program at the shelter called Second Chance Fathers, helping men who'd abandoned their children find ways to make amends, to rebuild bridges they'd burned, to become the fathers they should have been. He told his story in the group every week, held nothing back, exposed every wound and mistake. I accused my wife of cheating when she was pregnant with my sons. I threw her into homelessness when she needed me most. I chose my mother's poison over my wife's truth. I believed lies because it was easier than fighting. I have no excuses. I deserve nothing. I am nothing. He looked at the other fathers, saw his own pain reflected back in their faces. But if you still have time, if your kids will still see you, if there's any chance at all, fix it. Don't be me. Don't waste your life living with regret that eats you alive every single day. Word spread about the program. Local media covered it, did stories about redemption and second chances. And inevitably, a national news outlet requested an interview, wanted him to share his story, to help other fathers. Matthew knew Lisa might see it, knew it might look like he was trying to manipulate her, trying to force his way back into her life through public sympathy. But he did it anyway, because maybe helping others was the only redemption available to him, the only way to balance the scales even a tiny bit. The interview aired on a Thursday night. Matthew sat in his apartment, watching himself on television, telling the world about his failures, his mistakes, his sins. I destroyed the woman I loved because I didn't trust her. I have 2 sons who don't know me, who don't know I exist beyond a name on paper. I threw away everything that mattered because I was too proud, too stupid, too broken to fight for it. And I live with that every single day, every single moment. Do you hope to reconcile with your family? The interviewer asked, her voice gentle. I hope they're happy. I hope they're healthy. I hope they never have to experience the kind of pain I caused, the kind of destruction I brought into their lives. Matthew looked directly at the camera, his eyes wet. If my sons ever see this, if they ever hear these words, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I wasn't there. I'm sorry I hurt your mother in ways that can never be healed. I'm sorry for everything. You deserved better. You deserved a father who fought for you, who believed in you, who was there, and I failed you before you were even born. The interview ended. Matthew turned off the television and sat in the dark, alone with his regrets. Across town, Lisa had been watching. She'd seen every moment, heard every word, felt every confession like a knife. And for the first time in years, she allowed herself to wonder, just for a moment. What if Matthew had actually changed? What if people could grow, could become better, could earn redemption? What if? Chapter 8. Constance's Destruction. The woman standing outside the boys' school was older, elegant, and terrifyingly familiar in a way that made Lisa's blood run cold. Lisa saw her through the car window as she waited to pick up Jasper and Sage. Constance Potts, perfectly coiffed and poison-dressed as respectability, talking to the school secretary like she had every right to be there, like she belonged in their world. Lisa was out of the car in seconds, her heart pounding with rage and fear. "What are you doing here?" Constance turned, and her smile was all venom, all cruelty, hidden behind expensive cosmetics. "Lisa, you look well. Success agrees with you. You've certainly come up in the world. I asked what you're doing here. I came to meet my grandsons. I have rights, you know. They're my blood. You have nothing." Lisa moved between Constance and the school entrance, her body a barrier. "You're the reason your son threw me out. You fabricated evidence. You destroyed lives. You have no rights to my children. No rights at all. Our grandchildren are still family, whether you like it or not. Biology doesn't lie, dear." Lisa pulled out her phone, dialed security with shaking fingers. "I'm calling the police. You're trespassing, and if you come near my sons again, I'll have you arrested." I'll do whatever it takes to keep you away from them. On what grounds? I'm an old woman wanting to meet her grandsons. What crime is that? On the grounds that you're a fraud and a liar, and I can prove it. Lisa's voice was steel. Every lie you told, every piece of evidence you fabricated, I can prove all of it. Something flickered in Constance's eyes. Fear. Real fear. You're bluffing. You have nothing. Try me. School security arrived, along with the principal. Constance was escorted off the property with warnings about trespassing, about harassment, about restraining orders. But Lisa knew this wasn't over. Constance wouldn't give up that easily. That night, after the boys were asleep, Jasper snoring softly, one leg hanging off the bed as always, Sage curled up with his stuffed elephant safe in their beds, Lisa called her lawyer. I want everything you can find on Constance Potts, every lie she told, every piece of evidence she fabricated, every crime she committed. I want proof that will stand up in court, proof that will destroy her. Lisa, is this wise? Opening this back up, going after her directly. She came to my son's school. She tried to meet them without my permission, tried to force her way into their lives. This ends now. I don't care what it costs. The investigation took weeks. Lisa's lawyers dug through everything, found the Photoshop expert Constance had hired all those years ago, the private investigator who'd created fake surveillance footage, the trail of lies and manipulation and cruelty that had destroyed Lisa's marriage. It was all there, documented, provable, irrefutable. Lisa scheduled a meeting, not at her office, not anywhere Constance could feel comfortable or in control, at the shelter where Lisa had once lived, where she'd fought to survive while Constance was destroying her life from a penthouse, living in luxury while Lisa bled and suffered. Matthew didn't know about the meeting. Lisa hadn't told him, hadn't contacted him at all, but she'd made a decision that terrified her, a choice she knew might haunt her forever. She brought the boys. Jasper and Sage sat beside her in the shelter's community room, quiet and confused and a little scared. Jasper kept fidgeting with his shoelaces, tying and untying them nervously, his usual energy contained into this small, repetitive motion. Sage pressed close to Lisa's side, seeking her warmth and protection. They'd asked why they were here, why they weren't in school, what was happening. Lisa had told them they were going to meet their grandmother, but she hadn't explained which grandmother or why. Constance arrived exactly on time, and her face went pale when she saw the twins sitting there, two living, breathing consequences of her actions. These are your grandsons, Lisa said quietly, her voice deadly calm. Jasper and Sage, the babies you tried to kill by destroying me when I was pregnant with them. I never meant... Look at them. Lisa's voice was steel wrapped in ice. Look at what you almost erased from the world. Look at these children who almost died because of your lies. Jasper and Sage stared at Constance with identical expressions of distrust and confusion. Jasper's hands clenched into fists, his small body tense. Sage shrunk back slightly, seeking the safety of his mother's presence. You lied about our mama, Jasper said, his voice hard for such a young boy, filled with protective fury. You made our dad think she cheated. You're why we don't have a father. You're why our family is broken. Constance's composure cracked, her carefully maintained facade breaking. I was trying to protect my son. I was doing what I thought was best. From what? From love? From happiness? From having a family? Lisa leaned forward, her eyes blazing. You destroyed Matthew's marriage because you couldn't stand that he loved me more than he feared you. You couldn't control him through me, so you decided to eliminate me entirely. You weren't good enough for him. You came from nothing. I wasn't white enough for him. Say it honestly at least. Be honest about your racism for once in your miserable life. Lisa stood, and she felt powerful in a way that had nothing to do with money or success, powerful in a way that came from survival and truth. You created fake photos, fabricated surveillance footage, lied to a dying man on his deathbed, poisoned your husband's last days with cruelty. You made your own son believe his wife betrayed him while she was carrying his children. And for what? Pride, racism, the need to control every aspect of your son's life. I wanted what was best for my family. I wanted Matthew to have the life he deserved. You wanted to destroy anything you couldn't control, anyone who made Matthew happy without your permission. Lisa pulled out her phone, showed Constance the evidence file her lawyers had compiled. I have proof of everything. The Photoshop expert you hired, his full testimony, the private investigator who faked the surveillance, his signed statement, the paper trail of your lies, every email, every payment. I could have you arrested right now for fraud, for falsifying evidence, for conspiracy. I could destroy you the way you tried to destroy me. Constance's face went completely white, all the blood draining away. You wouldn't. You're bluffing. I should. God knows you deserve prison for what you did, deserve to lose everything like I lost everything. Lisa looked at her sons, at these beautiful boys who existed despite Constance's best efforts to prevent them, to erase them before they were even born. But I'm going to give you a choice instead. One chance at something better than you deserve. What choice? You sign a full confession, every lie, every piece of fabricated evidence, everything you did to destroy my marriage, to hurt me, to poison your son against me. You apologize to Matthew for what you did to him, for using his father's death to manipulate him, for destroying his happiness, and then you disappear from our lives completely. You stay away from me, from my sons, from Matthew. You cease to exist for us. And if I refuse? Lisa made a call. Police officers entered the room, summoned by her earlier arrangement with the department, ready to make arrests. Then I press charges, every single one I can. You spend what's left of your miserable life in prison, and your grandsons grow up knowing their grandmother was a criminal who tried to destroy their mother, who cared more about control and racism than about family or love or truth. Constance looked at the boys, really looked at them for the first time, saw Jasper's defiant stare, protective and fierce, saw Sage's fearful eyes, vulnerable and young, and something in her face shifted, some crack in the armor. Maybe it was guilt, maybe it was fear of prison, maybe it was the first hint of actual remorse, of understanding what she'd done. I didn't know, she whispered, her voice small and broken. I didn't know you were pregnant. I didn't know about them. If I had known, would it have mattered? Lisa asked, her voice cutting. Would you have cared about 2 babies, or would you have just worked harder to erase them? Be honest with yourself if no one else. The silence answered the question better than words ever could. Constance signed the confession, every detail, every lie, every manipulation and cruel calculation. The lawyer witnessed it, made it legal and binding, a document that could destroy her if she ever tried to hurt them again. Then came the hardest part. Constance had to face Matthew, had to confess her sins to the son she'd claimed to love. Lisa had arranged for him to be here, though she hadn't told him why, hadn't prepared him. When he walked in and saw his mother, saw the boys, saw Lisa, his confusion was absolute, his face cycling through emotions too fast to track. What's going on? Lisa, what is this? Your mother has something to tell you, Lisa said quietly, stepping back. Constance looked older suddenly, diminished, all her power and confidence stripped away. She handed Matthew the confession with shaking hands. He read it slowly, his face going from confusion to horror to devastation with each line. By the time he finished, tears were streaming down his face, falling onto the pages and smudging the ink. Sage made a small sound of distress seeing his father cry, his tender heart breaking. You lied. About everything. His voice was hollow, empty. Dad died believing Lisa had betrayed me. You fed him those lies on his deathbed, poisoned his final days. You used his death to manipulate me, to destroy the woman I loved. I thought I was protecting you. I thought I was doing what was best. You destroyed me." Matthew's anguish filled the room, raw and terrible. "You made me throw away the only woman I ever loved. You're the reason I have sons who don't know me, who look at me like a stranger. You're the reason Lisa suffered in ways I can't even imagine. You're the reason our family was destroyed before it even had a chance. God, Mom, what did you do? How could you do this?" "I'm sorry." Constance was crying now too, her carefully applied makeup running in dark streaks. "I'm so sorry. I was wrong. I was so wrong. Sorry doesn't fix this. Sorry doesn't give me back the years I lost. Sorry doesn't erase what I did to Lisa because I believed your poison, because I trusted you over the woman I loved." The police moved forward. Constance didn't resist as they explained the charges: fraud, falsifying evidence, conspiracy, read her rights in voices that had done this 1,000 times before. Before she left, she looked back at the boys one last time, really seeing them, seeing what she'd almost destroyed. "I hope you have good lives," she said softly, her voice breaking. "Better than what I gave your father. Better than what I deserve." Then she was gone, led away in handcuffs, and the room fell silent. Matthew stood frozen, the confession still in his hands, staring at nothing. He looked at Lisa, at the boys, at the ruins of everything his mother had destroyed, everything he'd helped destroy. "I don't expect you to forgive me," he said quietly, his voice barely audible. "I know what I did. I know it can't be undone. I know there's no fixing this. But Lisa, I swear on everything I hold sacred, I didn't know the evidence was fake. I thought it was real. I thought my dying father was trying to protect me from betrayal." "I know." Lisa's voice was tired. So tired. "I know you were manipulated. I know she poisoned you with lies. But Matthew, you still made the choice to believe her instead of me. You still threw me out. You still said those terrible things, still destroyed me when I was vulnerable. Your mother gave you the poison, but you chose to drink it. You chose to believe the worst of me instead of fighting for the truth." Matthew nodded, tears still falling, his whole body shaking. "You're right, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life, every single day." Jasper and Sage had been quiet through all of this, processing more adult pain than children should ever have to witness, seeing ugliness they shouldn't have to see. Jasper was still clenching and unclenching his fists, his anger having nowhere to go. Sage had tears on his cheeks, his sensitive heart overwhelmed. Now Sage spoke up, his voice small and trembling. "Are you our dad?" Matthew looked at his youngest son, and his face crumpled completely, breaking into pieces. "Yes, I'm your dad. And I'm so sorry I wasn't there. I'm sorry for everything. I'm sorry I threw your mother away. Sorry I didn't know about you. Sorry for all the pain I caused." "Do you want to be our dad now?" Sage asked, his voice filled with desperate hope. "More than anything in the world. But that's not my choice to make. It's your mother's choice, and yours. I have to earn that right, if it's even possible." Lisa felt the weight of that truth, the impossible decision settling on her shoulders. She looked at her boys, at Matthew, at the impossible situation they were all trapped in, the wreckage of the past, threatening to destroy any chance at a future. "I need time," she said finally, her voice shaking. "Time to think. Time to figure out if there's any way forward from this, any path that doesn't end in more pain." Matthew nodded, understanding and accepting. "Take all the time you need. I'll be here. However long it takes, whatever you need. I'm not going anywhere." He left quietly, and Lisa was alone with her sons, and the echoes of everything that had just happened, the weight of decisions not yet made. "Mama." Sage's voice was trembling, his small hand finding hers. "Is it okay if part of me wants to know him? Even after everything? Is that bad?" Lisa pulled both boys close, holding them tight, feeling her heart break and heal simultaneously. Yes, baby, it's okay. It's all okay. Your feelings are valid, whatever they are. But she wasn't sure if that was true, wasn't sure if anything would ever be okay again. Chapter 9. Earning the Impossible. The letters arrived every day for 60 days straight, never missing a single day. Matthew didn't send them to Lisa's home or office. He sent them to Grace, who gave them to Lisa without comment, without judgment, just quiet support. Lisa didn't open them at first. She stacked them on her dresser, unopened envelopes forming a small mountain that grew taller each day, a physical representation of words unread. But eventually curiosity won. Or maybe it was something else. Hope, fear, the need to know. The first letter was dated the day after Constance's arrest. Dear Lisa, I don't expect you to read this. I don't expect anything from you ever again. But I need to write it anyway, need to put into words what I can't say to your face. I was wrong. About everything. I should have trusted you, should have fought for you, should have protected you instead of destroying you. My mother's lies were poison, but I drank them willingly. I chose pride over love, and I've paid for it every day since. Not enough. I'll never pay enough. But I'm trying to be better. Trying to be someone those boys might someday want to know. I'm in therapy. Real therapy. Working through everything. I've started a program helping fathers reconnect with their kids. Every day I help another man fix what I couldn't. It doesn't absolve me. Nothing will. But maybe it means something. I love you. I never stopped. Even when I hated myself for it, I loved you. I'm sorry for everything. Matthew. Lisa read it 3 times, crying harder each time, feeling things she'd tried so hard to bury. The letters continued. Some were short, barely a paragraph. Some were long, pages of confession and growth. All were honest, in a way that broke her heart. Matthew wrote about his therapy sessions, about facing his own weakness and privilege, about realizing he'd been raised by a woman who taught him that love was conditional, that trust was weakness, that control mattered more than connection. He wrote about watching Lisa's interviews, seeing her success, feeling pride and shame in equal measure, celebrating her victories while mourning his failures. He wrote about the boys, about seeing Sage that day in the shelter and knowing immediately, recognition hitting him like lightning, about searching desperately for information on Jasper, finding so little, wanting to know everything. I want to know them, one letter said. Want to know what makes Sage anxious and how to help him feel safe. Want to know what makes Jasper laugh, what he dreams about. Want to know their favorite foods and their fears and their hopes and everything I've missed. But more than that, I want them to be happy, even if happy means without me. Even if I never get to be part of their lives, I just want them to be happy and whole and loved. Lisa found herself waiting for the letters, anticipating them, reading them late at night after the boys were asleep, crying over them, hating them, cherishing them. Grace noticed, the way she noticed everything. You're softening. I'm not. You are. And it's okay to soften. It's okay to wonder if people can change, if redemption is possible. People like Matthew don't change, don't they? Grace raised an eyebrow, challenging her. You did. You were broken and became powerful. You changed everything about your life. Why can't he be broken and become better? Lisa didn't have an answer for that, couldn't argue against her own transformation. Meanwhile, the boys were asking more questions, especially Sage. He wanted to know about Matthew, wanted to understand the man they'd met so briefly. Is he nice, Mama? Really nice, or just pretending to be nice? I don't know, baby. I honestly don't know. Can we see him again? Just to see, just to know. Not yet. Mama needs time to think. But Lisa was investigating. Quietly, carefully, she learned about Matthew's life now. The program he'd started, the men he was helping, the therapy he was attending, the work he was doing. She watched a video of him speaking at a conference for single fathers, watched him break down completely, talking about his sons, about his failures, about the cost of choosing pride over love. He looked different, older, humbler, broken in a way that seemed genuine, not performed. One day, Lisa drove to the shelter. She didn't go inside, didn't announce herself, just sat in her car, watching through the window as Matthew read to children, served meals, helped people who had nothing and needed everything. She watched him interact with a homeless father and his daughter, watched the kindness in his movements, the patience in his voice. Watched him wipe a child's tears and tie another's shoes and hand out sandwiches with genuine care. This wasn't the Matthew she'd known, the confident CEO who'd thrown her out without a second thought. This was someone else, someone damaged and trying desperately to heal, to become better. Lisa drove away without going inside, but something had shifted in her heart, some wall beginning to crack. That night, she finally responded to one of his letters. Just a few lines, but it felt monumental. Matthew, the boys want to meet you. Really meet you, not an accident in a shelter. I don't know if I'm ready for this. I don't know if I can trust you. But they deserve to know their father, even if he's late, even if he failed them before they were born. If you're serious about this, about them, then you need to be all in. No half measures, no giving up when it gets hard. These boys have abandonment in their DNA. Don't add to it. Don't break their hearts the way you broke mine, Lisa. Matthew's response came the next day, hand-delivered by Grace with tears in her eyes. I'll do whatever it takes, whatever you need, whatever they need. Thank you for this chance. I won't waste it. I promise, on everything I am. M. Lisa set up rules, strict, non-negotiable rules. Matthew could meet the boys, but only in supervised visits at places and times Lisa approved. He would attend family therapy with them, work through the damage with professional help. He would prove, through months of consistent action, that he wouldn't disappear when things got difficult. And he would accept that Lisa might never love him again. This was about being a father, not reclaiming a marriage. That door might be closed forever. Matthew agreed to everything without hesitation, without negotiation. The first visit was at a park, neutral territory. Lisa, Grace, and the boys on one side, Matthew on the other, looking more nervous than she'd ever seen him, hands shaking. Jasper was hostile immediately, his protective instincts on full display. So you're our dad? The one who threw Mama out when she was pregnant? Yes. Matthew didn't try to sugarcoat it, didn't make excuses. I'm your dad. And I made the worst mistake of my life when I didn't believe in your mother. Why should we believe in you? You shouldn't. Not yet. I have to earn that, and it might take years. Maybe forever. Matthew looked at both boys, tears already in his eyes. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect you to love me. I just hope that maybe, someday, you'll let me be part of your lives in whatever way you're comfortable with. Sage was gentler, his tender heart showing. What do you like to do? I used to like building things, companies, plans, big, impressive things. Matthew's voice was soft. But now I like helping people, reading to kids, trying to fix the things I broke, even though I know some things can't be fixed. Can you fix what you broke with Mama? Matthew's gaze shifted to Lisa, and she saw everything there. I don't think so. Some things are too broken to fix, too damaged to repair. But you can try, Sage insisted, bouncing slightly on his toes, the way he did when he was hopeful about something. That's what Mama always says. You can always try to make things better. The visit was awkward, painful, and strangely hopeful, all at once. They met again the next week, and the week after, and the week after that. Slowly, carefully, Matthew became a presence in the boys' lives, a regular fixture. He showed up for every single visit, never cancelled, never made excuses, never failed them. Just appeared, consistent and steady, proving through action what words couldn't convey. He learned that Sage needed reassurance, that his anxiety made him cling to routine and familiar patterns, so Matthew made their visits predictable, same time, same place, same promise that he'd be there and wouldn't leave. He learned that Jasper tested everyone, pushed boundaries to see who'd stay and who'd abandon him, so Matthew stayed. Through the anger, the accusations, the walls Jasper built so high and thick. When Jasper accidentally spilled juice on Matthew's shoes, Matthew just helped clean it up without anger. When Jasper said cruel things designed to hurt, Matthew took them without flinching, without retaliating. Lisa watched all of this from a distance, watched Matthew with their sons, and felt her heart do complicated, terrifying things. Months passed. The family therapy sessions were brutal, everyone facing old pain and new possibilities, digging into wounds that had never properly healed. "Do you still love Mama?" Sage asked Matthew during one particularly intense session. Matthew looked at Lisa, and his honesty was devastating, laying his heart bare. "Yes, I never stopped, but love isn't enough if there's no trust, and I broke that trust in ways that might never heal." "Can trust be rebuilt?" the therapist asked gently. "I don't know," Matthew said, his voice breaking, "but I'm trying to be someone worthy of it, even if I never get it back. Even if Lisa can never trust me again, I want to be worthy of it." Lisa felt something crack open inside her, felt the wall she'd built around her heart, developing more fissures, more cracks letting light through. One evening, she found herself alone with Matthew after dropping the boys at Grace's house for a sleepover, something that had become routine. They sat in her car, silence stretching between them, heavy with everything unsaid. "Thank you," Matthew said finally, his voice quiet, "for giving me this chance, for letting me know them. They're incredible, Lisa. You've done an amazing job raising them. They needed a father, even one who failed them, even one who came late. Lisa." He turned to face her fully, and she could see tears in his eyes. "I know I can't fix what I did. I know there's no going back, no undoing the damage. But I need you to know that losing you was the worst thing that ever happened to me. Worse than losing the company. Worse than everything. And finding out about the boys, knowing what I put you through, knowing they almost died because of my choices." His voice broke completely. "I can't make it right. But I'm trying to be better. For them. For you. For myself." Lisa looked at this man who'd destroyed her and was now trying desperately to rebuild himself, to become worthy, and felt something terrifying blooming in her chest. "Hope. I don't know if I can trust you again," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I know. I don't know if I can forgive you. The hurt goes so deep. I know. But I'm willing to try. For them. Maybe for us. Maybe for the possibility of something I can't even name yet." Matthew's breath caught, his whole body going still. "What does that mean?" "It means we keep going, keep trying, keep showing up one day at a time." Lisa met his eyes, saw the desperate hope there. "It means I'm not ready to give up on the possibility that people can change, that redemption is real, that broken things can be rebuilt into something new." Matthew reached for her hand, hesitant, asking permission without words. Lisa let him take it, felt his warm, calloused hand close around hers, and in that moment, in her car under the streetlights, something impossible began to seem possible. Healing. Forgiveness. Maybe even love again, different than before, but no less real. But it would take time. Months, maybe years, maybe forever. And Matthew would have to earn every single moment, every touch, every piece of trust. Chapter 10. The Reunion. The therapist's office had become sacred ground. a place where impossible things happened slowly. Today was different. Today was the day they'd all been working toward for months. Lisa sat between her sons, Matthew across from them, and the therapist asked the question that would change everything. "Are you ready to be a family again?" Jasper spoke first, his voice carrying that protective edge that might never fully disappear. "I need to know he won't leave, that when things get hard, when we mess up or disappoint him, he won't just throw us away like he threw Mama away." Matthew leaned forward, his eyes locked on Jasper. "I can't promise I'll be perfect. I'll make mistakes, but I can promise I will never ever abandon you again. You want to test me? Test me every single day for the rest of my life. I'll still be here. I swear it." "What about Mama?" Sage asked quietly, his gentle heart showing. "Do you promise not to hurt her again?" "I will spend the rest of my life trying to heal what I broke, trying to be worthy of her." Matthew's gaze shifted to Lisa, and she saw everything laid bare. "Your mother doesn't need me. She's strong enough on her own, but I need her. I need all of you, and I will earn that need every single day, however long it takes." The therapist looked at Lisa. "What do you need from Matthew?" Lisa had thought about this question for months, through sleepless nights and endless doubts. "I need honesty, always, even when it hurts. I need you to fight for us instead of against us when things get difficult. And I need you to understand that trust is something you'll be building for the rest of your life, not something that comes back overnight." She paused, feeling tears build. "But I also need you to know that I'm ready to try, really try, to see if we can build something new from the ashes of what we lost." The session ended with a plan. They would move forward as a family, slowly and carefully, with continued therapy and constant communication. That evening, Lisa invited Matthew to dinner at her home. Their home, potentially, if this worked. The boys were nervous excited, Jasper reorganizing the silverware 3 times, counting forks and spoons obsessively. Sage practicing what he wanted to say to his dad, whispering words Lisa couldn't quite hear. Matthew arrived with flowers, his hands shaking as he held them out. Not as an apology, as a beginning, a new start for all of us. Dinner was chaotic in the best way. Jasper told exaggerated stories about school, complete with sound effects and wild gestures that knocked over his water glass. Sage showed Matthew every single drawing he'd made over the past months, explaining each one in careful, loving detail. Matthew helped clean up without being asked, moving through the kitchen like he belonged there. After the boys went to bed, Jasper fighting sleep as always, making excuses to get up, Sage going down easy after Matthew read him a story about brave princes. Lisa and Matthew sat on her back porch, the night quiet around them. "I've been thinking about what comes next," Matthew said, his voice nervous. "What comes next is we keep doing what we're doing, slowly, one day at a time." "I know. But Lisa, I need to say this. I need you to know." He turned to face her fully, taking both her hands. "I want to marry you again. Not now. Maybe not for years. But someday, when we've rebuilt everything, when you trust me again, when the wounds have healed enough, I want to stand in front of our sons and promise to love you the way I should have the first time. The way you always deserved." "Matthew, I know it's too soon to even talk about this. I know I have years of proving myself ahead, but I need you to know that's where I'm headed. Toward you, toward us, toward the family we should have been all along." "I can't promise we'll get there," Lisa whispered, her voice breaking. "I know, but I can promise I'll try. I'll try every day for the rest of my life." Lisa looked at this man who'd broken her and was now trying so desperately to heal them both, and made a choice that terrified her. She leaned forward and kissed him. It was gentle, tentative, tasting of tears and hope, and impossible second chances. Matthew's hand came up to cup her face, and she felt him trembling, felt his tears mixing with hers. When they pulled apart, both of them were crying, both breaking and healing at once. "We have so far to go," Lisa said, her forehead resting against his. "I'll walk every mile. I'll crawl if I have to, whatever it takes." Inside, they heard Sage call out, anxious from a nightmare. They both stood to go to him, moving together naturally, like they'd been doing this together all along. They sat on either side of Sage's bed, both comforting him, both present. Jasper appeared in the doorway, saw them together like a real family, and something crossed his face. Relief, hope, permission to believe. "Can Dad stay?" Sage asked sleepily, his nightmare already fading. Lisa looked at Matthew, saw the desperate hope he was trying to contain, the fear that she'd say no. "Yes," she said, her voice steady. "He can stay." Matthew stayed that night on the couch, not pushing for more than she was ready to give. In the morning, Lisa found him already up, making breakfast for the boys, humming softly, moving through her kitchen like he was trying to memorize every detail. This became their rhythm. Matthew stayed some nights, went home others. They dated, which felt strange after everything, learning each other again, building something new from ruins, brick by careful brick. Months passed. Matthew kept showing up, kept proving himself through action, not words, kept loving them with a patience that astounded her. One Saturday at the park, where they'd had their first supervised visit, the boys ran ahead, chasing each other, their laughter filling the air like music. Matthew pulled Lisa close, right there in public, claiming her. "I love you. I love our sons. I love this life we're building together. I love who I'm becoming with you." "I love you too," Lisa said, and meant it, with everything she was. "But Matthew, if you ever choose someone else's word over mine again, I won't. I swear on everything I hold sacred, on our sons' lives, on my own soul. I will always choose you. I will always fight for us. I will never let anything or anyone destroy this again." She believed him, not blindly, not completely, but enough to try. Sage ran back to them, out of breath and glowing. "Dad, Mama, come play with us." Dad, Mama, the words that made a family real. They played until sunset painted the sky in impossible colors. Later that night, after the boys were finally asleep, Matthew got down on one knee in Lisa's kitchen, in the same spot where she'd cried so many tears, where she'd rebuilt herself from nothing. "I know I said I'd wait. I know we agreed to take this slow. But Lisa, I can't wait anymore." He pulled out a ring, simple and beautiful, and nothing like the one from before. "This isn't the same ring. This is new, like we're new, like our family is new. Marry me, again, for real this time. Let me spend the rest of my life proving I'm worthy of you and our sons." Lisa looked at him, this man who'd destroyed her and rebuilt himself, and felt her heart make the choice her mind had been dancing around for months. "Yes, yes, I'll marry you." Matthew stood, pulled her close, kissed her like she was oxygen, and he'd been drowning without her for years. "I'm going to make you so happy," he promised against her lips. "You already do," Lisa whispered back. They told the boys the next morning over pancakes Matthew made, slightly burned, but perfect anyway. Jasper was skeptical but pleased, already planning what suit he'd wear, what speech he'd make. Sage cried happy tears and asked if this meant they'd be a real family now, forever. "We already are a real family," Lisa told him, pulling both boys close. "This just makes it official. This is just the world catching up to what our hearts already know." The wedding was small and perfect. Just them, Grace, Dr. Thompson, and the people who'd helped them survive and rebuild. No expensive venue, no elaborate ceremony, just truth, just love. Just promises made with the full knowledge of how precious and fragile they were, how hard-won and deeply meant. When Matthew promised to love and cherish Lisa, His voice broke completely, tears streaming. When Lisa promised to trust and believe in him, she meant every word, felt them in her bones. And when they kissed, their sons cheered, and something that had been shattered years ago finally, beautifully, impossibly became whole again. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. They had years of healing still to do. Trust to rebuild daily, wounds to tend carefully. But they had time now. They had each other. They had their boys. And they had learned, through pain and perseverance, and the kind of suffering that breaks some people but forges others into something stronger, that love alone isn't enough. You need trust built brick by brick through consistent action. You need honesty, even when it hurts. You need people willing to fight for each other instead of against each other, willing to choose love when fear would be easier. You need second chances earned through years of proof, not promises. You need forgiveness that's given because it's deserved, because someone has truly changed, truly become worthy. Lisa and Matthew had lost everything and found each other again in the rubble, had built separate empires and merged them into something stronger than either alone, had learned that the greatest love stories aren't the ones that never break. They're the ones that break completely, shatter into pieces so small they seem impossible to repair, and then choose to rebuild anyway. Together. Always together. The end.